Welcome. So the full quorum of the commission is here. We have 2 members online and the other 4 members are here. When I'm speaking English, you can use that. Your lead questioner today is my fellow commissioner, Natalia. She will be leading the questioning, and then others of us will join in. Please try to keep your answers very brief. We have a number of questions for you, and we want to make sure we can get through all the material. And, you know, if we need more, brief answers are good, and if we need more, we'll tell you. Okay? Thank you. Natalia.
Thank you, Matthew. Доброго дня, мене звуть Наталія Оніщенко, я член комісії.
Good afternoon, my name is Natalia. I am a member of the commission, and I am ready to start asking your questions. The pleasure is mine. In order to be able to ask all the questions, I would like to ask you to be brief and use no more than 3 minutes for answering each of the questions. So, in your answer, you mentioned that you cannot remember what kind of services you provided to the NGOs, PND, as a private entrepreneur. This is a gap that you haven't commented on it. So can you please add anything about this? Because your income from this type of cooperation was 122,000 hryvnias in 2019 and 216,000 hryvnias in 2020. Maybe you have additional explanations. Maybe you recalled something about this cooperation. Thank you. Thank you for the question. In my written explanations, I mentioned that after taking a look at my agreements as a private entrepreneur, I didn't find any agreement with this Center Spільних Дій. There were a lot of questions, and that is why I didn't provide any explanations. Yesterday, I tried to understand more what organization it is. I understood that this is the organization that was renamed several years ago. In the period where we worked in 2018-2019, was called Center UA. We worked with this organization a long time ago in 2018 and 2019 as a private entrepreneur, as a physical person who was actively engaged in political finances, monitoring, and I was part of the monitoring of the control institutions in the area of introducing the reform of funding with the Ministry of Justice, with territorial election commissions and others, and I was preparing analytical documents related to implementation of this reform, and I was part of different awareness raising and education activities which aimed to help the parties stick to this new legislation. This was a series of educational events. This was the subject of our cooperation, and there were proper documents, agreements with me, between the organization and me as a private entrepreneur. All the income was reflected in my declarations, and of course I paid taxes from all this income. Thank you. Yes, you know, as a rule, our interviews are related to different questions, and that is why we will change the vector of our questions. So another direction, and I would like to suggest the following. So you had several operations with car by issuing and receiving power of attorneys to use these cars. So what is your attitude towards using this type of documents to use the cars? So thank you for the question. If I'm not mistaken, at least within the past 10 years, I didn't issue any power of attorney to any person, neither nor to be able to do something with the car or to use it. Speaking of the last 10 years, then the power of attorney to provide the right so there was a power of attorney issued by my wife to use the car issued in 2019. There was an agreement of sale and purchase of this car in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. In the future, based on this power of attorney, this car was bought by a person who bought it from us using a simple written document, and we got the money, and this person received the technical passport of the car. So within the past 10 years, I can only remember this one case when my wife issued this power of attorney. This is due to the fact that this car was not in proper state of use, exploitation state. This person who bought the car was renovating the car, repairing the car during 4 months. And then my wife issued this power of attorney, and this car was sold for 29,000 hryvnias because this car was 30 years old back then. Let us talk about your immovable property, about real estate. You have the car, which is 65.9. Yes, exactly. Flat 96, 2 square meters, village Щаслива, Бориспіль region, district. Where do you live right now? As for the first real estate object, yes, I own it. It was sold using the credit money between myself and the youth fund, молодежный fund. This mortgage was for 30 years, and the last payment shall be versed in by the end of 2049. Yes, I own this apartment, but I will continue paying off for a long time. As for the apartment in Щаслива, I bought it on 18th December 2020. It is in the village of Щаслива, Kyiv Oblast. This is a 3 rooms apartment. It has about 96 square meters as a whole. And this is exactly where I live right now. Starting from June 2023, I live in this apartment. Until then, for 7 years, together with my family, I lived in the apartment, which was located in Чубинське village, Pogrebnyaka 14A, 157 apartment. Yes, we rented it. I used this apartment together with my family based on the rental agreement. What can you say about your savings? Do you have any savings? Thanks for the question. I think the Commission must know I'm a person who was born in Luhansk Oblast, and as of the moment of occupation of Luhansk Oblast, I was there. Because of that, I lost the apartment that I had. And in August 2014, I moved upon the invitation of the head of Center of Political Reforms, Igor Kalushko. Upon his invitation, I relocated to Kyiv Oblast. I started working as a private entrepreneur by providing services to the Center of Political and Legal Reforms, or to Center UA, or other institutions that worked in the corruption prevention area. Right after the start of my work there, taking into account the loss of my apartment, every year we started saving some part of the money to buy in the future a house in. So in general, within the past 10 years, I have earned 12.5 million hryvnias, which amounts to $360,000. I saved about 15 to 20% of my income, and as of 1st January 2024, I managed to save $88,000.
Щодо
We have a couple of more questions. In regard to the connections of your relatives with the temporarily occupied territories, I would like you to give some information about that, and then we'll go into detail. Thank you. Thank you. I'll try to be brief. In 2014, all my closest relatives, I mean my parents, myself, my family, and families of my brothers, I have 2 older brothers, we have all left the temporarily occupied territories. And we stayed in different parts of the controlled territory of Ukraine, depending on our opportunities, including financial capabilities. Most of my relatives lived in Kharkiv after that. After Luhansk region was occupied, I have been staying in Kyiv region in Boryspil district, as I indicated. I have been living in Chubinska village for 9 years, and last year I have moved to an apartment in Shasliva village. My parents in different times have been living with our family members. My mom has been staying with me. My father has been mostly staying with one of my brothers in Kharkiv. Starting from 2015, taking into account that part of the household of my parents, apartment of my parents, and those places where I lived needed some sufficient care for us not to have connection with that property. My parents went back to the occupied territory from time to time, according to the legislation of Ukraine. And after that, they also have returned back to the controlled territory according to the law of Ukraine. However, at the beginning of on 2020, my parents stayed in Luhansk region, and COVID started in Ukraine, so the checkpoints have been closed from between the occupied territories and the controlled territories of Ukraine. Besides, the health conditions of my parents were poor. My father went through a heart surgery, and my mother had also poor health, so they could have had difficult repercussions if they have caught COVID. That is why they tried to isolate themselves. They managed to isolate themselves almost completely. After the full-scale invasion, they have lost this opportunity to go there and back because the checkpoints haven't been working after that. So starting from March 2020, my parents have been staying at the occupied territories in Luhansk region. They are not in touch with the occupational authorities. Over the 10 years, at least, they haven't been at the territory of the Russian Federation. Therefore, I don't see any risks here. You have mentioned that they tend to be isolated with the external world. What is their income? How do they live if they are so isolated? It is hard to answer because I'm not asking about their income. They are not strangers to you. They are your parents. Yes, of course, the parents are mine, but the income is theirs. I can just assume together with you. while both of my parents are retired, they are people who have earned some money according to the legal ways. I can assume that they live that they live using their pensions. They have quite good pensions because my father was a miner. He's a retired miner. That is why he has quite a high pension that allows living at the occupied territory. He receives this pension according to he leaves this pension on the Ukrainian account, and when he came back to Ukraine, he was able to receive this money. I believe that he has enough savings to live. So neither you nor your brothers are helping financially to your parents. No, there is no necessity. My parents live in their own house. Their ratio is 90% connected with the products that they are growing. That is why I would say that they do not need our support. Moreover, my father is even able to save some money. In 2018, your brother was accused of financing terrorism in organizing a scheme to transfer money from the government-controlled territory to the temporarily occupied territory in 2015. What do you know of such activities? Can you comment it somehow? I don't know much about it. I can comment the following, the factual information. As far as I know, in 2014, some people whom he knows, some people close to my brother who were retired and who were receiving their pension in Ukraine, as far as I understand, for some time, he was helping those people to deliver their earned pension to the occupied territory. And as far as I know, this was according to the law. If the Commission would like to study this issue, I would suggest you to give requests on this item, and you will see that there were a number of violations here and on the part of the security service of Ukraine. So they were abusing their powers. The security service of Ukraine was abusing their powers, and they were providing some false information in connection with my brother. As far as I know, he was helping people with disabilities to receive their pensions to be able to live in the occupied territories. Thank you very much for your answer. You have told us, you have provided the information that you had several plots of land in Luhansk region and you haven't declared them. Why? To be brief, at the territory of Luhansk region, I don't have any plot of land. As far as I understand, you are appealing to my explanations that I provided in terms of integrity. I have indicated that my parents were going back and forth to the government-controlled territory, explaining it by their necessity to take care of their household and their plot of land. We were not. I told that they were mine, but in fact, those are the plots of land of my parents. This is one of the plots of land belonging to my father in Ivushka, and they have been also using another plot of land at the same territory. They acquired those plots of land in 2008. My father and myself, we have planted a garden, an apple garden there, and we've been taking care of it together. But taking into account the deterioration of health of my father and the fact that those plots of land were closer to me than to him, he was giving less effort to take care of those plots of land, and I was taking care of them. That is why, taking into the fact that almost entirely I was working on those plots of land, I used, I said that they were mine, but in fact, legally, they have never been mine. I don't have any right to use those plots of land. So those plots of lands belong to my father. If I may, I would like to address your scholarship activities because it's also interesting. You have quite a wide scope of publications. You have reported to publicizing around 60 manuals, books, and we are impressed with your scope of scholar interest, starting from cruelty to animals to electoral law. Thank you for your question. As a scholar, I identify myself as an expert in criminal law. When I was finishing the university 20 years ago, I really liked this science, and I started working on it starting from the 2nd or 3rd grade of the university. Later, I was invited to get a PhD, and after that, after I received my PhD, I started working as a tutor, as a professor at the university. So my primary interests covered the criminal justice. My thesis covered child exploitation, but at some point I was also, after I covered the child exploitation, I also was interested in the topic of cruelty to animals because my personal attitude to animals and their value for people, at the situation when there were a number of cases of animal abuse in Ukraine, it impacted children as well a lot. That's why I decided to study this issue as well. So I, together with Andriy Daniletsky, I decided to work on a book on cruelty to animals. In 2014, me and my family, we have moved to Kyiv, and after that, over the last 10 years, I've been concentrating on anti-corruption issues. That is why, taking this into account, my scope of professional interests has shifted. And over the last 10 years, I've been involved with scholarship, with preparation of guidances and handbooks, some practical documents to provide for the newly established anti-corruption institutions, for them to be as effective as possible. In 2015, the law on political parties was changed in Ukraine, and those changes were devoted to introduction of political finances reform. Starting from that moment, the reform of political finances started in Ukraine. This was just the beginning of the reform, and it needed theoretical understanding of the challenges related to the newly established body. So at that time, apart from my main criminal and anti-corruption vector, I also started another vector, which was monitoring and assistance to the bodies to implement the reform.
Everybody should be here, and so we can resume with this interview. Please, Natalia.
Я запитала вас, власне, з приводу того, що від
I
широченної
have asked you a question about your broad scholarship activity. You have decided to go into practice. Don't you feel that that you might possibly decide to go back to theory again? Thank you very much for this question. Let me start with some general issues. I have been in scholarship for quite a long time to figure out with the general situation. One of the problems, in my opinion, with the high quality scholarship is that often when producing some high level products, scholars stop and never implement what they have started in practice. The best theory scholars of criminal justice, in most of the cases, never transformed, their studies never transformed into laws and adopted practices. Because of the lack of tools and bridges between theory and practice, I believe that building those bridges is a good quality of classical NGOs. For example, Center for Legal and Legislative Reforms is one of those NGOs that are bridges between theory and practice. We tried to take the scholarship achievements and implement them on practice with the interested bodies. Working at the Center for Legal and Legislative Reforms, I've been working there for almost 6 years. I realized that, Dmytro, yes, I understand that. I haven't asked you about the Center of Legal Reforms, but please let us know whether I know a lot about that. As you see, the head of the legal reforms has been moving from theory to practice. I was the person devoted to theory, then I started building a bridge from theory to practice, and even then I realized that my opportunities were limited. Me as a person dreaming to live in a country which will become a member of the European Union, which will be prosperous with stable economy, I believe that I could be more useful and effective doing practice. And I believe that over those years, I managed to receive, over those 6 years, I managed to receive higher results than working in theory for 15 years. So if I will be able to implement the achievements of scholars and experts, to implement them being in power, I will definitely do this because it will allow us receiving as good results as possible. Maybe if at my later age I will go back to theory. Yeah, everybody who retires wants to be a scholar. Thank you. Do we have any other questions? I have 2 brief questions. We have learned that you do not have plots of land at the temporarily occupied territories. Do you have any other immovable properties like an apartment at the temporarily occupied territories? Yes, I have an apartment, as Natalia indicated at the beginning, and you indicated the right address. This is an apartment in Katerynivka. Previously, it was called Yuvileyna. It is a 2-room apartment that I took a bank loan for 30 years. So I have to pay for it by 2042. So the question is, are you still paying for this apartment? What happened to this property? In the middle of 2014, when arriving to the Kyiv region, as I have to pay this loan, I addressed the representatives of the bank with a request to resolve this issue somehow, because I have lost this apartment. I have received a denial. I was informed that I have to pay for this apartment regardless that I don't have it anymore. And I still needed to pay 90% for this apartment. I was assured that I had to pay for this apartment. I have to reassure you that all the payments for this loan are being paid. I'm paying for this loan according to my agreement with the bank. I'm still paying for this apartment that I will probably never use. Do I take care for it, or what do I do with it? I don't pay any payments for this apartment while my parents are there at the occupied territories. They are visiting this apartment to see whether it is still there, whether it is okay. Nobody has been living in that apartment. What about your communal payments? No, we're not paying any communal payments there. What about your closest relatives? What about your parents? I don't know. One brief question to clarify what you mentioned during this interview. You have mentioned that your parents receive the pension from the Ukrainian government, and they are receiving this money on the bank accounts, on Ukrainian bank accounts. How do they withdraw this money? How do they use this money there? As I mentioned, this money, they withdraw this money when they come to the territory of the government-controlled Ukraine. Starting from 2020, they haven't been on the territory of the government-controlled Ukraine, as far as I know, but I can be mistaken. Over this period, my mother stopped receiving the pension according to some illegal grounds. She couldn't be there for the verification. That is why she is not receiving the pension. As far as I know, my father is still receiving this pension, but I'm not completely sure. Probably he's either waiting to get back to Ukraine and withdraw this money, or maybe one of my brothers is receiving this money, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Thank you. I also have a couple of questions. Question number one. Could you please take into account your personal experience? Inform us in what cases it is admissible, it is possible to transfer a public official of an ACP without any competition. And can those cases be emergency cases? In general, the law on public service has the following items. Public servants get the public service according to the open competition. However, the law indicated 4 exceptions when the competition cannot be taken. One of the cases is transferring a person to a similar or lower position. As I indicated, anybody at the NACP can transfer their officials to the similar or lower position.
If you would like to get to know about my experience, so if you become the head of the NACP, will you use your discretion to conduct those things if you will need someone at some position, or will you go through competition each and every time? Well, right now, I can say that this question, so like the competitions have been cancelled, that is why I won't have this to treat this question, but I would like to understand what you mean. It seems to me that when I think on one hand about the perspective of more active use of human resources, and on the other hand, to use legislation, which is okay now, but might lead to doubts in the future, I would probably select the option of more slowly selection of members of my team, but I would choose the way that is related to integrity, openness, and doesn't lead to any doubts. One more question. You mentioned in your declaration that you have a plot of land with a garage, and you thought that this garage doesn't require being declared, so it's not related to the land, so it's not like a construction object, or are there any other regions? Yes, you're right. In the village of Chubinske, my wife and I, based on collective ownership, belong this plot of land, 31 square meters. And yes, there is this individual garage, permission to build an individual garage according to point 2.1 on the Article 136 on the law on preventing corruption. The objects of unfinished construction shall not be declared according to Article 181. This is a land plot or an object, construction object, which belongs to this land, which cannot be transferred without any damage to the existing construction options. So the object of unfinished constructions, there are cases when people received the permission to conduct construction until the moment of like receiving this object of immovable property, but this property shall be linked to this plot of land. As of now, this plot of land has metallic mobile garage, which is not like linked to this land by its foundation. That is why it's not a subject of for declaration. I have photos and I can show you the photos and explain everything in detail, so you can see how it looks like, how this garage looks like in real life. Yes, you can give the photos through the secretariat. And last but not last question.
Colleagues online, any questions? Okay, very good. So we are done with your interview. So you've officially concluded your time, and we greatly appreciate your time and attention to detail today, and your willingness to be open and ask these questions. Thank you for submitting your candidacy and being willing to go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.